Airports Company South Africa is appealing to our Tambo International Airport travellers to allow for extra time during some of the delays they're experiencing there. AXA says the delays are due to longer queues at the Border Management Authority's passport control processing points. The company has apologised for any inconvenience, saying additional personnel have been sent in to offer their assistance. For this discussion, let's bring in a Commissioner at the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. Some very, very lucky people clogging up the borders, coming for holidays or leaving for holidays at our Tambo International Airport.
Yes, thank you very much, Michelle, and we appreciate the invitation. Yes, indeed. You'll remember, Michelle, we did indicate when we really launched our festive season plan that we are expecting high numbers and high volumes of people traveling through our ports. And of course, as we had indicated, we are expecting the pre-COVID number, which is just above 6 million. So on that basis, we can indicate that we have started, seeing that number, or those numbers of volumes, as it were. And as we had indicated, OR Tambo is one of the biggest, ports, as it were, and is actually facilitating the majority compared to all of the ports, as it were. So in this instance, indeed, there has been a lot of people that has been coming through into the country, but at the same time, there has been a number of people that has been exiting the country. So on that basis, we had been very, very much overstretched. And we had actually this morning sent more officials on the ground to be able to ensure that we are able to facilitate all the travelers.
So, Dr. Masiapato, when we talk about the ports of entry are incredibly busy, particularly those areas where people are entering the country at international airports, is it a matter of our infrastructure, the kind of technology that we use that perhaps isn't up to speed so that we're able to process more people quicker?
Yeah, you see, Michelle, if you are really to compare, our port with the other, ports in other jurisdictions, you will fairly realize that there is still a lot of investment that we need to do. We have been having conversations, obviously, with our colleagues from AXA, Airports Company South Africa, around those particular issues. I think you will be aware that in other jurisdictions, they're already using e-gates, where people are able to be facilitated electronically and be able to move a bit faster, as it were. But in our instance, we are not there yet, but we are actually in discussions to be able to move into that particular direction. You will then note, Michelle, also on the basis of the media statement released by AXA, that in some instances, because people don't necessarily, understand the different roles, even in this instance, they sometimes think that it is AXA's issue per se. But in terms of the processing, it is the Border Management Authority's responsibility from an immigration point of view. Now, the issue of infrastructure is a very real one. And I think you will also be aware, Michelle, in other jurisdictions, countries are busy looking at, expanding their international airports. I think you will probably be aware that in Addis Ababa, for instance, they're also doing the same, or they're looking at doing the same. If you go to Dubai, they're also looking at doing the same. And I think that is because of the highest volumes of people that are actually moving in between countries.
Yeah. And do you think, Dr. Masiapato, that kind of investment into technology is worthwhile? Because, we don't always have these kinds of volumes passing through our airports. It's really just at particular times of the year. Is this an urgent upgrade, you reckon?
No, indeed. I mean, it is supposed to be. And remember, an international airport becomes the face of a country. I mean, when people arrive at a port of entry, for instance, and they had to be, stuck in a queue for an hour or so, that automatically is a negative reflection, on the country at hand. It is not just only now during the festive period. I mean, these are issues that are very much fundamental. The movement of people now in between countries is not just limited to this period. People are really moving, a number of times, even in between times, as it were. So the investment is something very much fundamental. And that is why I'm saying it is something that we are already discussing about, and it is something that is very much fundamental. I think one thing that we can be very much accepting, I suppose, as a country, from a border management point of view, is that from an immigration in particular, there hasn't been much of an investment in the space. And that is why we are looking at having some investment in this space and try to upgrade our systems in particular.
And what would that kind of upgrade cost, Dr. Masiapato?
So, in terms of cost, Michelle, really, these kind of things are fairly costly. But of course, it is not something that is to be put on a particular authority, as it were. Mm-hmm. I mean, for instance, if we talk about e-gates, it is something infrastructurally that will be taken care of by Airports Company South Africa. And of course, as the Border Management Authority will be coming with the software side of things, in terms of the immigration system to be able to talk to those particular, gates, as it were. It is a fundamental investment that is supposed to be brought into the space. But I suppose, like I'm saying, I mean, if you look at South Africa itself being the center in the continent, particularly even in terms of the movement that we actually handle at OR Tambo in particular, there is a need for us to move in this direction. The discussions are underway, but of course, we are also looking at partnerships with the private sector because we know that the fiscus, as we speak, is fairly constrained.
Mm. And of course, we know what a massive boost tourism is for our economy. It's a much needed investment. We want to make it easier for people when they arrive in the country to be processed and to get in safely.
Yeah, no, indeed. I mean, that is the main focus. That is why I had indicated earlier that a tourist, when they arrive at an international airport, the first assessment in terms of the efficiencies of the environment is the manner in which they get handled at an international airport like OR Tambo in this instance. So on that basis, for somebody to return, they will also be, reflecting on how long they took, for example, at the airport to be processed. So, and we know how critical, tourism is in this day and age across jurisdictions. So that is why we are also looking at these issues very much seriously. We are actually indicating that in the current, meaning the current festive season that we are going to be running, it is the festive season where we will still have these big challenges there and then, because as the Border Management Authority, being 18 months into the environment, we've been trying to bring some, efficiencies as well as seamless processing, as it were. But of course, we are not where we would like to be, as it were.
Yeah. So what's the aim here, for this upgrade? We're now at 2024. Festive season, is there a deadline that we have in mind for when this upgrade will happen?
Yeah, I think without necessarily entering into the space of AXA, Michelle, I think you will be aware that there has been a process that has been underway that AXA had started moving on. It was just unfortunate that there were some challenges that actually, happened around the issues of procurements and all of those. And I think the issue was fairly covered in the media space, as it were. So that is a demonstration that the conversation had already started. The only difference has just that we had not been able to really move, as it were. But from a Border Management Authority side, we are going to be starting in earnest in the new year to be able to make sure that our systems are actually upgraded. But in terms of AXA, for instance, and the issues I've referred to, like e-gates, as it were, I know that it is one of the priorities that AXA has, but I wouldn't be able to give a clear, timeline on their behalf, as it were, Michelle.
Yeah. So, Dr. Masiapato, it's all good and well to tell people to arrive at the airport 3 to 4 hours before your flight, depending on whether you're traveling domestically or internationally. But of course, we know people are taking connecting flights, and so there might be delays on one side that impact the other side. So all the more reason why we need to be able to process people quickly, efficiently, safely, doing all of the necessary checks and balances, getting them in and out of the country.
Yeah, indeed. That is one of the most critical aspects. The connecting of flights, and you will understand the aviation space is very much complicated. Any minute actually counts, because if somebody is not able to connect to their flight, it has a lot of logistical complications and also very serious financial implications. That is why we are taking these issues very much seriously. So since yesterday, we had actually deployed our Deputy Assistant Commissioner to fairly be on the ground and make sure that they support all the operational managers on the ground, as well as the acting port commander at OR Tambo in particular, and make sure that we are able to handle the volumes that we have started seeing from yesterday, as it were. So we do believe that as we go towards the weekend, this particular weekend, the volumes are going to still increase very dramatically, and that is why we had to send additional staff in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. People generally really go on leave sort of around Reconciliation Day. So you're absolutely right. Dr. Michael Masiapato, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Thanks for weighing in on this issue. Dr. Masiapato is a commissioner with the Border Management Authority.